Hey everyone, it's Mariana and happy Halloween to everybody. As promised, today's video is going to be a Halloween themed Q&A. You guys asked me so many awesome questions. I wish I could answer all of them in this video, but then I would be here forever. So instead, what I'm going to do is for the questions that I don't answer in this video, I am going to do my best to reply to all of you guys on the announcement video. So if your question doesn't get answered today, don't worry, I will most likely answer it in the next few days as a reply to your comment. Alright, so first let's get started with a few of the most popular questions that multiple people asked. One of them is what horror film scared me the most, and I have mentioned this before, but it is The Omen. That movie scarred me for life, I think, because I watched it when I was very young and I am still freaked out by it. And by the way, I do have a video on my channel of 5 movies that actually scared me, so check that out from last year. Another question that a few of you asked is if there is a video game that actually scared me. And I am not a huge gamer. I do play some video games, but I wouldn't call myself a hardcore gamer or anything. So the only game I could think of was Fear. I played it back when it came out and I thought it was pretty terrifying. I honestly don't know if it would have the same effect on me today as it did 10 years ago or whenever that came out. I think it was 10 years ago, but back then that was freaking scary. Of course, a bunch of you asked why do I love Halloween and what is my favorite thing about Halloween. I actually have to tell you that Halloween is not my most favorite thing to celebrate. That would be New Year's Eve. I just love winter holidays in general, but New Year's Eve is like my favorite day of the year. But Halloween is my second favorite thing to celebrate, and I just love the general vibe and mood of Halloween. Everybody's festive, everybody's decorating, people are dressing up, people are excited about watching horror movies, people are having fun, but at the same time it's a little spooky. I'm also a huge fan of autumn as a season and everything it brings: food, drinks, anything and everything autumn, and Halloween is my favorite thing. Surprisingly though, I am not actually a big fan of wearing a costume on Halloween. I love watching others put on cool costumes and do crazy makeup, but that's just not something I do. Part of that has to do with the fact that I just didn't grow up with that tradition because I didn't grow up in the United States, and the other factor is just that I like to be comfortable and I like to go to a haunted house, I like to eat delicious food, I like to watch some scary movies, and none of that is comfortable to do when you're wearing a crazy costume. A bunch of you also asked what is my favorite horror film of 2016 so far, and that would have to be The Witch. I loved that movie when I saw it in theaters, then I bought it on Blu-ray and watched it again, and I loved it even more. It's actually my favorite movie of the year overall so far. I don't know if it will stay that way, but for now, that's what it is. Not just horror, in general, my favorite movie of the year. And a few of you actually asked if I were a serial killer, what would be my signature thing or style? And I just can't answer that question because if I told you and then something like that happened, you would know it was me. We don't want that. Alright, now moving on to specific questions from specific people, and if I'm going to look to my left, it's because I'm reading the questions of my laptop. DVD Collector 96 wants to know if I'm looking forward to Del Toro's newest film next year, The Shape of Water. Of course I'm looking forward to Del Toro's new film. It doesn't matter what it is. I am looking forward to it because it's Del Toro and he's one of my favorite directors. He also wants to know what is my favorite horror TV show, and I would have to go with Hannibal. I am still sad that they canceled that after the 3rd season. I don't know what happened, but I love that show. My friend Lindsay wants to know if I could have one horror movie villain on my side in a post-apocalyptic world, who would it be and why? I love this question, it's awesome, but I actually had a bit of trouble figuring out my answer for this because any villain that I could think of that I would want on my side in that situation was not from a horror movie, so that was a bit of a struggle, but I decided I'm going to go with a xenomorph from the Alien franchise. And that sounds a little strange, but hear me out. This is a post-apocalyptic world. I need to protect myself and I need to potentially take over groups of people and settlements, right? Because why else have a villain? We're gonna take over, right? And none of the horror film like serial killers or forces of evil really would help me out in this situation, but if I had a xenomorph or two on my side, I would be like Daenerys and her dragons in a post-apocalyptic world, except for I would be Marianna and monsters. Right? That'd be pretty awesome. I feel like that's a solid plan. Ravi wants to know what's the most annoying horror movie cliche for me. And I would have to say that I hate when a horror movie pulls the whole thing of this was all a dream or none of this was real. I just feel like a movie wasted an hour and a half or 2 hours of my life when it does that at the end. I hate that twist with a passion. It annoys me to no end, and it just feels like everything I watched up to that point was just pointless. Reviews by Luke wants to know, do I prefer horror movie franchises with multiple sequels or standalones? And I am definitely on the side of standalones. There are some really good sequels out there. There are exceptions to this rule, but generally I feel like as a rule, sequels kind of suck and they are very rarely better than the originals. Kayla wants to know who are my favorite female characters from horror films, and hands down I have to go with Ellen Ripley. She is one of my favorite characters overall, and I love the Alien franchise, as you have figured out by now, but there are a ton of interesting female characters in horror films, but for me there's just Ellen Ripley and then there's everybody else. My friend Tatiana wants to know, what do I feel is the most underrated, underappreciated, or underexplored horror movie subgenre? And I actually feel like there are quite a few out there. The most popular subgenres are either monsters, supernatural stuff, or psychological or survival horror thrillers. Everything else is kind of on the back burner. For me, I need more great sci-fi horror. That is by far my favorite subgenre of horror, and there really isn't much going on in that genre lately. I don't even remember if there are any recent great sci-fi horror films out there. If anyone knows of any, please let me know in the comments below, because I need more of that in my life. But really, that subgenre needs to make a comeback. What would you say is the most disturbing body horror film that you've seen? And actually a few other people asked what is the most disturbing horror film that I've seen, and I would have to go with The Fly, because that gets pretty nasty. Movie Geek wants to know, which horror movie can I watch over and over again without growing tired of it? And the first thing that came to my mind is the original Scream, because I have seen it so many times and I am never tired of that movie. But really, any of my favorite horror films are very rewatchable for me, and I am not feeling like I'm going to grow tired of them anytime soon. Something like The Shining, or Cabin in the Woods, or Fright Night, or Alien, or Aliens. All of that has been rewatched multiple times, and I am never going to stop because they're my favorites. Edgar wants to know what's my favorite horror comedy and what's the worst horror comedy that I've seen. And for my favorite, I would have to go with The Cabin in the Woods. I love that movie. It's funny and scary at the same time. It is just brilliant, followed very closely by Shaun of the Dead. But my least favorite would have to be the Hansel and Gretel film with Jeremy Renner. I don't even know if that was meant to be a comedy or if it was just unintentionally funny, but that was bad. That was really bad. Alyssa wants to know who is my all-time favorite horror film director, and that has to be Wes Craven. The Poptimist wants to know what are my favorite South Korean horror slash thriller slash revenge movies. Well, when you said revenge movies, you just kind of killed that question for me, because there's Oldboy, and then there are other revenge movies. I love Oldboy so much. That movie kind of destroyed me. I needed some time after watching that film to pull myself together, but that movie is a masterpiece. I freaking love it. It's one of my favorite films of all time. Now, aside from Oldboy and going a bit more into the horror genre, I would say probably The Host and A Tale of Two Sisters. But I have so many more to watch, so if you have any to recommend, let me know in the comments below. And also, if you guys love good books and good book reviews, please go subscribe to The Poptimist because he is awesome. Sand Warrior wants to know, do I have any phobias? And the closest thing that I have to a phobia is the uncomfortable feeling I get around spiders, and really anything that's like a crawly thing. No, I'm not okay with those. I'm not terrified of them. I'm not just going to run away and scream, but I am definitely not happy when those things are around. Orange or purple? Purple. Brainiac 1984 wants to know, if you had to be one supernatural entity or creature, what would it be and why? And I am somebody who always answers vampire to this because I liked vampires before it was cool. Was there a time when it was not cool to like vampires? I don't know, but definitely before the whole Twilight and young adult situation. And vampires are just a really good thing to be. Look, when it comes to being a vampire, there are definitely some downsides. But first of all, I am pretty much invincible because good luck getting me in the heart with that stake. I'm way faster and stronger than you, and I will pretty much suck your blood out and kill you, so have fun with that. I am also going to live pretty much forever until somebody does catch me with that stake and I get to experience history and learn so many things. I get so much more time to learn stuff and to read, to watch movies, and if I get bored, I can turn some of my friends and we can all live forever, and it's gonna be pretty fun. I feel like it's a pretty good deal. Elliot wants to know, how do I feel about everyone going pumpkin spice / flavor crazy this time of year? Do I enjoy the taste of a good pumpkin pie or a pumpkin spice latte? This is my favorite part. Those queues at Starbucks are probably the scariest sight all October. This is true. Starbucks lines are pretty scary. And yes, I love pumpkin spice everything. As soon as pumpkin spice stuff is available, I am all about that life. Pumpkin spice lattes, pumpkin spice bread, pumpkin spice tea, anything. Which is better, World War Z or Train to Busan? Train to Busan, obviously. Would you rather get murdered while in the shower or get murdered in your dream where you die in real life? The choices in my life right now, I think I'm going to go with getting murdered in the dream. I feel like the shower situation is just too messy. Richard wants to know, would I rather be trapped in the forest with deadites from the Evil Dead or a nightmare in Freddy Krueger's world? Both suck, but I think I'm gonna go with Freddy Krueger. At least that's more entertaining because the Evil Dead situation is just, it's not fun. I guess I have a higher chance of getting out of the Evil Dead situation, but still, I think I'm gonna go with Freddy Krueger. Maybe we can talk and I can reason with him or something. I don't know. Devin wants to know, which horror comic would I want to be transported to? Revival or Lock and Key? Of course, Lock and Key. Revival is just not the deal when it comes to living in that situation. Lock and Key is way more fun and way more adventurous. Who would you say it's worse to be stalked by? The clown from It or The Grudge? I think I'm gonna go with the clown from It. The Grudge is just creepier in my opinion. I don't really have a problem with clowns. Granted, the clown from It is freaky as hell, but I think I would still choose him over The Grudge. And by the way, thank you so much for being my first Patreon supporter. It means a lot to me. Scott asked me a lot of questions. Here are some that we're going to go with. What is the worst experience you have ever had in theaters watching a horror movie? So I went to see The House at the End of the Street, the one with Jennifer Lawrence, and that movie was pretty bad, and the audience was even worse because it was filled with high school kids. And if you've ever seen Scream 2 and that whole movie theater situation where everybody's yelling and talking in the middle of the movie, that was my life watching The House at the End of the Street, and everybody was making Katniss jokes because it was Jennifer Lawrence. Now granted, because the movie was bad and kind of boring, I'm sorry if you like that movie, I really didn't, the Katniss jokes were kind of keeping me entertained in a way, so maybe it was a blessing in disguise, but really any other movie, that would have been the worst movie theater experience ever. He also wants to know what is my favorite and least favorite horror subgenre. My favorite, as I mentioned earlier, is the sci-fi horror. That is definitely my jam. And my least favorite is torture porn and any kind of overly gory, just body horror that is just there for the shock factor. I really don't like that. What's your favorite and least favorite Tim Burton's movies? I'm going to go with Edward Scissorhands for my favorite. That has been my favorite for a while, and I don't think that's ever going to change. And my least favorite, I think, is going to be Planet of the Apes. I would rather rewatch Alice in Wonderland and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which neither of those I am a fan of, but Planet of the Apes, just no, I don't want to see that ever again. That's it for this Halloween themed Q&A. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them because there were a lot of awesome questions, but if I didn't answer your question, I'm going to do my best to answer it in the comments back where you asked it on that announcement video. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. My Halloween videos are over for the year, but I will definitely see you very soon in my next video. Bye!